wasn't expecting anyone. The kitchen was, of course, immaculate, except for a sink of washing-up water, a plate, glass and cutlery on the draining board. Frankie rolled her eyes in Kate's direction, who shook her head while she tried to stifle a laugh. "Well, I must say, Mrs. Lund, I judge you harshly on your housekeeping skills," Frankie said, kicking off her heels and readjusting the woolen dress that had ridden up indecently on the walk over. "And just as soon as I finish this bottle of wine, and possibly one other, I'll be storming out of here in disgust. Oh, thank you." She accepted the glasses and poured the wine into 2 of them, while Kate produced a bottle of elderflower fizz. "Is that your fake wine for pregos?" she asked. Kate nodded as she poured her special bubbles into a wine glass and wrapped her enormous cardigan tightly around herself. Frankie wasn't sure there were many things more depressing than pretending to drink in order to forget that you were 3 months into an entirely unplanned pregnancy, although Kate seemed to have recovered from the initial shock and gave the impression that she was now happy to be having a 3rd child. But then, Frankie thought, it was probably possible to hide quite a lot under that cardigan. Once they were all sitting comfortably, shoes kicked off, Alison curled up in the armchair and Frankie stretched out on the sofa. While Kate settled herself on the huge footstool, Frankie raised her glass. "Right, can I be the first one to say good riddance to this year, and I bloody hope the next one's better?" The other 2 nodded and held up their glasses in agreement. Despite being entirely unprepared for visitors, Alison managed to produce breadsticks complete with a herb dip, some cheese twirls which definitely looked homemade, and, once those had disappeared, a box of chocolates with a dark red lid. "These look very fancy," said Frankie, leaning forward from her corner on the sofa and choosing one at random. She turned towards Kate and whispered, "I think she might have forgiven us for turning up without warning." Kate smiled, taking the box and holding it up to read the descriptions of the chocolates on the bottom. "These are posh." She passed the box back to Alison, who put it down without taking one. "I'll take it back," said Frankie. "She's not forgiven us. They're poisoned." A smile broke across Alison's face for the first time all evening. No, she shook her head. "These were a Christmas present, but—" She stopped talking, and her eyes began to well up. "Maggie bought them for me just before, well—" She paused, and Frankie could see the strain on her face as she spoke about her late mother-in-law. Frankie had only met Maggie a couple of times, but been greeted both times like a long-lost friend, and she had immediately fallen in love with her slightly anarchic tendencies and her infectious smile. "And," Alison continued, "she gave them to me the first time I visited her for Christmas, back when I was trying to make a good impression. I said I really liked them, even though I didn't, and she went on buying them for me every year." "You never told her?" Frankie said, confused. She would never have pegged Alison as someone who couldn't tell her mother-in-law she didn't like some chocolates. Alison shook her head. Frankie watched as Alison began to crumble into tears. She let Kate rush over to give her a hug, still a little too wary of scary Alison to get that close. No, she thought, not so scary these days. Picking up the tissues from the bookshelf next to her, she moved across to try and provide some sort of comfort, moving Maggie's chocolates in Kate's direction from the coffee table as she went. "Sorry," Alison was saying, wiping her eyes and sniffing. "No, don't be, it's okay," Kate said. "It's fine, totally normal to cry over chocolate." Frankie put the tissues on Alison's lap before retreating to a safe distance. Frankie was rewarded by the smallest laugh from Alison as the corners of her mouth tweaked up. Obviously, Maggie's death, even though they knew it was coming, had been awful. 2 days after Christmas, while the rest of the world was trying to work out what to do with all the leftover turkey, Frankie had received a text from Alison to say Maggie had passed away. Frankie had phoned Kate immediately to try and work out what to do, but they had reached the conclusion that the only thing they could offer Alison was a shoulder to cry on, while Simon was snowed in down in Eastbourne, having gone to visit an elderly uncle to break the news of Maggie's death in person. Alison blew her nose and sat upright in the chair. "Anyway, Kate, how was your Christmas?" Kate had just picked a chocolate and stopped with it half raised to her mouth before she garbled, "Oh, fine. You know, presents and a big meal." "Well, at least one of us managed to have a good Christmas," Frankie said as Kate tailed off. "Although next year I think it should be my turn." "Oh no, why was yours so bad?" Alison asked. Frankie sighed and flicked her ponytail. "It was just the whole bit."